If psychology and pop culture had a baby, they'd call it Shrink Tank.
There is a sort of pendulum that's swinging back and forth where we kind of go from one extreme.
And I think there's an element of truth to
because
this.
I have something interesting later in the show that will make you feel very weird.
From Nashville and Charlotte, this is the Shrink Tank Podcast. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dave Verhaagen in Nashville. We have a great show for you. Our trending topic today is the psychology of Disney live-action films. We're going to get to that in our second segment, but first we're going to meet our Charlotte panel. Normally, Dr. Emma Kate Wright is here, and she's missed the last few weeks. She's actually spending time with her family and has some family issues that have come up, and she's doing well, but she's not able to be here for this week or next, so we will miss her for a good stretch. But Dr. Frank Gaskill is still here. And
I am.
Frank, you're hanging in there.
I'm hanging in there, hanging by thread, hanging by a rope.
I hope not.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And Frank, I'm going to change the tone a little bit, a little more lighthearted. We're going to talk about Disney movies.
Yes.
Tell me your favorite all-time Disney movie of any kind.
Can I tell you the truth?
Yes.
I do not like Disney movies.
Why?
The animated ones.
You
I don't.
have-
They're happy.
I can't watch them.
You have no
They
heart.
remind him of a childhood he never had.
I mean, they creep me out. And I mean, if it's
What
like
do you mean
Pixar,
they
okay.
creep you out? I've never heard any human ever say that a Disney movie creeps them out.
They creep me out.
Well,
the way the characters move and the dwarves and the sleeping.
You
and
know, all of the dwarf
like,
movies.
The
87.
I'm a lion and I'm gonna save everybody.
What about that dwarf lion? Like, that totally threw me off, right?
They're just weird, and the guys all look like total pervs or molesters, and the women are all like, I can't do anything. It's just gross.
Okay, well.
It's so funny that Frank, of all people, saying this, where he's obsessed with Star Wars, with every weird creature in the world in it, and it doesn't creep him out at all. And then a Disney movie creeps him out.
I guess Warwick Davis, freaks him out in all the Star Wars movies. The guy that played the Ewoks, huh? Because they're
Well, he had on a costume. I didn't have to look at him.
okay. Wow, who would have thought I'd be the least offensive person in today's podcast?
I'm bringing it today, buddy.
Yeah, you are.
I'm bringing it.
Mark this day. Well, you just heard him. Jonathan Hetterly's here. He's our certified Asian who rounds out the panel. And Jonathan, favorite Disney movie?
This may come as a surprise, but I think my all-time favorite Disney animated film, not counting Pixar, is Pinocchio. I really like the classic animation style. I think the underwater scenes are just phenomenal. And I kind of like a lot of the older Disney movies that have these aspects that are no longer considered appropriate. Like you have kids smoking cigars, or in Pinocchio, there's like human trafficking. Like there's an element of that in the movie. Just what we what we overlooked.
Watching movies about child human trafficking.
I mean, if you think of Dumbo and it's got some of the purest racist, material in it, it's just like watching these and being like, oh yeah, that's what we used to teach children. Like, or think of Beauty and Beast. It's like, have someone abduct you and fall in love with them, ladies. Isn't that the dream? Right? I mean, I find that very humorous about Disney.
Yeah, A Song of the South, that was a good one too.
Yes.
I'll tell you, I lied. There is one Disney movie that I have seen many, many times, and I love it. It's Fantasia. And it's just because of the music.
Right, but that's a really trippy, weird movie. I mean, if you're not liking the movies because they're weird and trippy,
No.
weirdest.
Weird and trippy is cool. These movies, the people are just like freak shows. It's kind of what Hetterly just said. All that just craziness and it's just it's like watching a soap opera. Not happening. Fantasia's cool. I like the hat. The pointy hat is cool.
I have no idea how to even...
Kind of like Klansmen like pointy hats. Like that was...
Wow. Okay.
Wow. Who likes pointy hats?
I don't know. It had stars on it. It's cool.
I will tell you, this isn't necessarily my favorite Disney movie, but it's my favorite underrated Disney movie. Most Disney movies are rated the way they should be, or, you know, maybe, I mean, they're considered classics often. A movie that kind of went under the radar, but I love it, was Hunchback. Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's one of my favorite movies.
Why?
I love the characters. I love the music. I love the story. I just think it's awesome.
That's awesome, Dave.
Yeah.
Good times. You want me to tell that again?
It's
Good
a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
feel like we can record that even better. Let's do that again with a little more pizzazz.
I'll try it. Well, moving on. We'll talk about Disney in a second. But each week, Jonathan trolls around the internet and he finds a great story of psychology in the news for our first segment that we call
Being Human.
So this research prompts us to ask the question, would you like to live forever? Advances in cellular biology and cybernetics are bringing us closer to the point of indefinite life extension. So death, researchers are suggesting, will soon become a choice rather than a fact of life. Now, a recent paper published in the Journal of Individual Differences looked at how men and women differ with their attitudes towards an indefinite life extension. What they found was that the more favorable attitudes towards science people had, the more that they supported life extension, while those with strong religious attitudes had less positive opinions about living forever. And interesting enough, men scored higher on science and women scored higher on religiosity, suggesting that more men favored advances to live forever and women just weren't having it. So Frank, actually, this is a great question for Frank. As a man that is both a champion of faith and science, what do you make of this research and what is your personal opinion about living forever?
This is one article where I would really want to dig into the data and look at their methodology, because sort of like, okay, women are more religiosity and men are more science. Like I don't know. This is one where I'd just like to dig in and figure out how they went about this process and look at some of the critiques of it, because it seems a little bit blanket statement. Most of the studies that we review seem like it's kind of easy to understand how they come to those conclusions, but this one's a little tough for me. The funniest part about this article, though, is the author asks in the last paragraph, what might this all mean? And he says, well, not all that much right now. Like, okay. Yeah. But I've been talking about this for years as to when we hit this singularity in the medical field where we are going to have the opportunity to live 500 years. And would I want to do that? And I've read articles about this because it really changes the psychology of the way that you think. So if I think, all right, I'm going to be around for 500 years, well, that might change my approach to debt, or it might slow down the way I develop something, or I may think, well, I could do that in 10 years. And I think different people would approach this very differently psychologically if they think, yeah, okay, I could live for 500 years. And with the monetary discrepancies in society now, okay, let's track that out 500 years. The poor people are all going to die out. And so then you're going to kind of bring this society of these oligarchs, and it becomes this almost, I think, a future slave-type society where the people who can't live forever are going to be taken advantage of by the ones who can live forever.
Are you commenting on this study or telling us your fantasies, Frank?
I do not want to live forever. I've asked my kids this question, and they do not. They want to live a normal life.
So, Frank, would you want to live for 500 years?
Yes.
500 years?
Yeah.
Just not forever. Not 505 years.
I mean, maybe not. I'd have to think about it, but I could go, say, 250. Or I want to go to space. I want to see that technology where I can get out into space and it's a regular thing and we can go places, and I just kind of want to see some of that future.
So you want a homecoming? You want a family
Yes,
reunion.
I want to go
Okay.
meet my family in space. Yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
The bacteria that's floating
But
in the cosmos.
I do find this sort of area of science and also faith really fascinating, because kind of where my faith does come into play, it kind of, for me, argues against this. But that's food for another conversation.
Jonathan, would you want to live to be 500 years old?
No.
400,
No.
300,
No.
200.
48.
If I live to 60, 65, I will be a happy dude. Like, that is a full life.
So let me
Jeez.
just be clear. 65 for you and 500 for Frank.
Yeah.
I would love to live to spend quality time if I am blessed to have grandkids. And after that, you know, the second some of the faculties start going, like
They
someone
won't.
else has to start a wiping or
No.
I become a saggy Asian, you know what? I'm tap out.
Okay. Now
Well, I
you bring
agree
up
with that.
there's the 2 points. Number one, I do not want to live 500 years if I have to see my kids die. I don't want to see that. So I don't want to live 500 years. But number two, your faculties will not crap out. Like, this technology is going to make us stronger and younger, and it gets rid of our wrinkles, and you get collagen. And
And they're going to have the little nanobots that eat away the plaque in your brain and stuff like
Yep.
that.
Well,
And in your
then
heart,
the
everywhere.
study is totally flawed because if you ask people, do they want to live forever, you're going to get a very biased and slanted
Yes.
statement. But if you say, hey, you never lose your bowel control, who's not going to sign up for that? I mean, come on.
I'd sign. Oh wait, I
Good
already
grief.
lost that. Never mind. Oops.
I have
He did it again.
I have a figure in mind for how old the outer limit of how old I'd like to
That's shocking to hear, Dave. Never would have thought that.
be. All right, what do you guess it is?
For you?
Yes.
Is it closer to me or closer to Frank?
No.
I'm not
Just
gonna
you got to just say
Just
it.
guess.
It's 130.
I'm going to do 131.
It's 150. That was
That's
it.
good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'd live to if I could get the little nanobots that would eat away the plaque in my brain, and I could have like different
Different metabolism and ability
Yes.
to walk.
right things like that.
Okay.
150. That's
You
it.
just got to make it about 22 years, and you're good, dude.
Hey, Dave, is the nanobots going to reverse aging on you or just going to keep you where you're at right now? Because
It reverses it.
I need it to reverse it.
Yeah, because, you know, we did earlier in the year that challenge where 10,000 steps was like the Mount Everest for Dave. So
They've made rats live like 4 and 5 times their average lifespan.
well, rats walk faster than Dave too. So I mean,
That's true.
and they have a better diet. And I
Yep.
mean,
And there you go. Well, let's shift gears and move into our trending topic. And our trending topic today is the psychology of Disney live action. And so let me just put this in a little bit of context. Aladdin has just come out and has fair to middling reviews. This summer, The Lion King is coming out. It's highly anticipated. I think it'll be one of the biggest grossing films of the year. Not the biggest, but one of the biggest. And then we've already had Dumbo, Jungle Book, Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, etc. And there's already 10 other Disney live-action films slated. There's Lady and the Tramp, Mulan, I love Mulan, by the way, Cruella, and a few others. So, big question first is this trend for Disney just a lazy money grab, meaning like we're out of ideas and we know this will work and we're going to release these old films as live-action films, or is there something else going on? Is there something deeper than that? Frank, your thought.
I strongly believe it is a lazy money grab. There are no new ideas, and I think with the acquisition of Sony and a lot of these big purchases that Disney has made, Marvel, Star Wars, that their bottom line is really important right now, and their stockholders do not want to see a misstep. So this is just low-hanging fruit for them.
But you would argue all those acquisitions are profitable. right? They're all big. Marvel.
They are big.
So they have room to make missteps rather than they have to play it safe.
Not according to their stockholders.
Okay. Jonathan, do you have another take on it?
Well, I don't think it's an either or. I think it is yes. There is no doubt that like Frank in a lot of areas of his life, he sees money, dollar signs. So these films are known commodities. But I think there's probably 2, maybe 3 other forces that are influencing this surge of Disney live action remakes as well.
Like?
I think one is just nostalgia. Like there's something very powerful about a story that people either heard when they were kids, and it really brings them back to a simpler, more innocent time in their life, and sharing that with your own kids or generations to come. I think there's an element of novelty versus original content, and that's a trend that we're seeing all across Hollywood, of that most of the blockbusters are sequels or remakes. So original content is not something that people are championing with money. But I think the other thing that I always find to be a more interesting conversation about the Disney remakes is that they oftentimes are attempts for Disney to correct offensive cultural missteps in our time. And we were playfully joking about that in the starting section. But when you think about Aladdin, when you think about a lot of the old Disney fairy tales where the women have very little agency and their primary role is to meet a prince, I think Disney is trying to update some of those things that people find problematic to see if they can't spin it in a modern take.
So you're saying we're nostalgic for racism and misogyny?
No, I'm saying you are nostalgic for racism and misogyny.
Oh, my God. Jeez.
Oh, Frank, do you buy that? Do you think there's more to it than just laziness?
I do. I do. I mean, I would agree with this nostalgia piece, but my understanding of the Disney corporate world is it's just bottom line cutthroat. You saw that with Solo. Solo made a whole lot of money, but now they've just said, yeah, we're going to shut those down because they need those billion-dollar films to get that stock price going. They can't let it drop.
So I might be wrong about this, but when I got married, I'm not wrong about this part.
Wow, what are you about to say?
Yeah, when I got married, I told Ellen that there was only one rule of the family, and that was I always had to have a subscription to Entertainment Weekly. That was it. Like everything else was negotiable except for that. And so I have read Entertainment Weekly for probably 15 years. No, actually, way longer than that.
Way longer than that.
Say, if this was,
I've been married for 28 years, so it's got to be. Anyway, but I'm trying to think of when The Lion King came out. It was probably 15 years ago. And to my knowledge, it was the only film that I can remember that got an A+ grade. Like there are lots of films that they'll give an A or A-. I cannot remember another film, if I might be misremembering this, but they got an A+. The idea is like, it's the perfect story. Like it's the perfectly constructed story. And I think that's true. I think it holds up.
You mean Hamlet in Africa?
Hamlet in Africa, yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the question. You've got this thing that is regarded as perfection from a storytelling standpoint, from an execution standpoint. Why risk messing with that? Like what's the, apart from we're going to make some money, which they're going to make some jack on it. Why would someone psychologically, like what's the benefit of wading into the territory? You can't be better than that.
I think that would be maybe the argument in my camp of what I'm talking about, is that they know people will fill the theaters, which is hard to do now. But they know they're going to get butts in the seats for these things. And if you come up with a new, fresh idea of something that, okay, what is this about? Then they're less likely to fill those theaters. Well, and the risk far outweighs the reward, I think.
You think about that. iconic line in Jurassic Park where the Jeff Goldblum character, Dr. Malcolm, says, "You were so busy on focusing if you could, you didn't stop to think if you should."
Right.
And really, it's basically in human nature, I think we're wired to create, and with innovation, we want to exploit it into explore our own generation of storytelling and advancement. And animation really has been, I think animation has been devalued as an art form. I think it's been pigeonholed primarily to be a children's medium. And so now computer-generated animation is really what people are putting a lot of money and time and advancement to see if they can't recreate some of these animated stories in a way that we can't get a pack of lions to do a circle of life. I dare someone to try and let me know how successful you are with that. But we have technology now that you can recreate a lion interacting with a muskrat or a wild boar singing Hakuna Matata. And so for them, that's going to resonate to this generation, as weird as it sounds, because we're all very old and outdated as we're talking about, do we want to live forever? But there's a lot of people, maybe my daughters included, that just naturally view Lion King or Aladdin as like old commodities.
Yeah.
Like it's not theirs. It's mine.
I would agree with that.
And they want something that they can claim as their own. And quite honestly, a film with Donald Glover and Beyonce, that's theirs. Like that's what they want.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I don't know when it comes out, but when is the next Dark Crystal? When's that come out?
It's a television series on Netflix.
Okay. It's a television series. I think that'll be interesting to see how that is taken in, because it's puppets. They're not really upgrading the technology the way Disney is.
Well, you don't know what's going on in the inside of the puppet with the
do
hand.
that.
Like the advancement of like,
no.
Does this wig you out there?
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah.
Let's just put your hand away. That's good. Thank you.
Well, you know, I'm more inclined to believe that things like Aladdin and even Cinderella and are just like, we're gonna redo something that we know people will see. I think it's possible The Lion King is a little different, and that is, I think some of the thinking of the filmmakers is we have developed technology to the degree that we have something new to offer that familiar story. In other words, we're going to tell the same story, probably in very much the same way with the same story beats, but we're going to do it in a way that's visually different and something that we could not have done 5 or 10 years ago. So
I agree with that.
I think that's part of it. So last question about this. With the exception of Frank, and this is often how we start these questions, with the exception of Frank, who's the outlier, almost all people enjoy, love, resonate with Disney films to some degree. Disney and Pixar, I'll say as well. What do you think it is about, and Frank, I'm not going to come to you first because you've disqualified yourself, but what do you think it is about Disney in particular that really hits people in a way that they become attached to these films? This has been for decades. They've been able to create film that resonates with people emotionally. Jonathan, what do you think that is?
Well, there's a couple things immediately come to mind. One is animation, even though I think it is a masterful art form for all ages and all subject matters. But it is heavily used to tell stories to children and to young people. So we're very exposed and saturated with animation when we're young, very impressionable during those formative years. I think Disney is masters of manipulative storytelling, and I don't say that in a negative manner. They know how to tap into your emotions. The story arcs oftentimes are crafted around loss and trauma that really tap into deep emotions for people. And then I think the other thing is when we become parents ourselves, we share this with our kids. And so then it's not just me watching Beauty and the Beast or Lion King. It's me watching it with my kids. And now there's a double layer of nostalgia and connection and emotionality that my kids growing up, they watch the same thing over and over and over. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a lot of Disney or Pixar films. Certainly can't tell you how many episodes of Backyardigans or VeggieTales I've watched. Like, kids just want to consume it through repetition.
Yeah, and I agree with the nostalgia piece and watching it with your kids, because with Toy Story 4 coming out, we have the full generation now of kids that were like my little kids seeing Toy Story for the first time, and now they're much older, and you could sit down and experience that with them if the foundational statement is the first movie was good, which all those animated Disney movies sucked. So I can't really have that experience because that's a known thing.
I'm glad Jonathan brought up the idea of trauma and loss, because if you look at Disney films, almost all of them are anchored around that. I mean,
it's
somebody
awful.
dies.
Somebody dies. Somebody's lost someone or something significant. I mean, they go for the jugular. And,
yeah, they do,
and they know how to do it. And so there is kind of, it's hitting at the most primal of psychological drives and needs, of survival needs, affiliation needs for safety. I mean, all of it. They're really, they cracked the code early on like, how do we hit that most primal thing and then have a story that helps people sort of work that out. So it's powerful.
Dave, have you heard of Bambi syndrome?
No.
It's actually a thing. There's Bambi syndrome and Cinderella syndrome. And our sound engineer, Sean Beck, has Bambi syndrome.
Which is?
It's somebody who is afraid of things being hurt, of animals being killed,
I have that.
of forest fires. Okay, then you have
Not that as much, but I do. I have the Bambi syndrome.
I thought it was a genre of porn, Bambi syndrome or Cinderella syndrome. That just sounds dirty. I'm sorry, it just sounds dirty.
Well,
I have the Little Mermaid syndrome. Like,
yeah, Cinderella syndrome is even worse. That's a woman who always needs to be rescued and dependent upon a man. Which, I understand that because
I'm not going anywhere near that, Frank. You walk into that quicksand as quick as you want to there.
Well, if you have your own thoughts or questions about Disney live-action remakes, we'd love to hear from you. You can tweet us at shrink_tank, or you can write us at feedback@shrinktank.com. And our final segment, something that we call Doctor's Orders. These are things that we're personally recommending to you in pop culture. And we'll start with Frank.
I am recommending a TV series on AMC. If you are an AMC Premier member, okay.
If you fly first class, this is for you.
All the episodes are available. You can just watch. I believe it's 9 episodes. But if you have AMC, you can download the first episode, and it's called NOS 4A2, Nosferatu. And it's written by Stephen King's son, and it's about a woman who has a supernatural ability to track basically a vampire who feeds off children and deposits them at Christmas Land, where every day is Christmas and unhappiness is outlawed.
And we certainly wouldn't want to watch one of those creepy Disney movies.
Nope.
All right. Jonathan.
Well, as the certified Asian of Shrink Tank, I want to recommend a Netflix original film called You'll Always Be My Maybe. It is a romantic comedy starring Ali Wong and Randall Park. She is a very funny comedian. They both worked on the Fresh Off the Boat sitcom. This movie, I think, is the movie that Crazy Rich Asians wanted to be, which is it's funny, it's a glimpse inside of the lives of everyday Asian culture, but it's not a fantasy depiction that really is at the heart of Crazy Rich Asians. This movie alone, folks, if you find it only moderately funny, which I found it to be very charming, you have to stick with it if for no other reason. There is probably a 15 to 20 minute segment in this film that may be the funniest thing I will see all year. I don't think it's a spoiler because it's all over the internet memes. Keanu Reeves guest stars as Keanu Reeves.
Oh, wow.
And it is ridiculously funny.
I cried laughing through that whole. He's in 2 scenes, and they are amazingly funny. I mean, he's totally poking fun. You know, we talked about Keanu a couple weeks ago and how he's one of the most beloved people in Hollywood because he's so generous. Well, here it is, him playing Keanu Reeves as a douchebag and just sort of totally full of himself and man, is it funny. It's worth watching the whole movie just for those 2 scenes. It's knock it out of the park. Did I ever recommend Chernobyl on this podcast? I feel like I did.
You did.
Yeah. Okay. So it's done now. I've seen the final episode and man, does it hold up. So that is a ringer. I would just want to come back to that and say, if you haven't seen it, watch that. A show that I recommend about once a year, and I get lots of smirks from Jonathan, but I'm going to recommend it again, is So You Think You Can Dance. It's a show that my wife talked me into watching. And
don't gaslight her. Don't blame her for this. Take responsibility of your life.
And I really love it. It's super fun. So I'm going to recommend that to you. And
Dave, do you watch Puppy Bowl?
I do not. No.
Oh,
and I don't
try.
And I have no interest in like those movies about dogs that have human thoughts and run away and get lost. Don't care about any of that stuff.
So that's your line where you're like, see, I'm normal. I don't like that. Okay. You go with that, Dave. Like you let that help you sleep at night.
You go, girl. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Shrink Tank Podcast. If you like this episode, you can help our podcast grow by giving us a good rating on iTunes and also telling your friends about us and subscribing. And if you didn't like it, you can tell us by feedback, emailing us at feedback@shrinktank.com. For more content exploring the intersection of psychology and pop culture, visit shrinktank.com. We have great articles and videos. And you also have links to our Doctor's Orders products and social media profiles. You can check out the description box or the show notes of the video. And you can follow us on Twitter at @shrink_tank and like us on Facebook. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel, we'd love for you to subscribe. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, so check out the description box below. Our producer and theme music composer is Sean Beck. Our associate producer and social media guru is Mariel Butler. For Emma Kate Wright, Jonathan Hetterly, and Frank Gaskill in Charlotte, we miss you, Emma Kate. I'm Dave Verhaagen in Nashville. Tell all your friends about us and make it a great week.
Shrink Tank.com